Alright, remember we had this code a few lectures back? We've just got a button 1 and a button 2. And we inserted an event listener, specifically a click event listener on each of these buttons. Actually, you know what? We don't even need button 2. Let me just get rid of button 2. That's just going to confuse us. So we've just got button 1 and we're adding these event listeners on button 1. But remember, we wanted the click handler event to be fired during the capturing phase and during the bubbling phase. And then we had 2 consoles. Remember that? Well, now I want to mix things up, right? I want to actually add something onto, well, you know what? Here we've just got a button. I actually want to let's create a div with an ID of 3A. And then within this div, I want to insert this button. Does that make sense? So there we go. But now I want to mix things up. As I said, I want to actually add a listener on this div element. So let's do that. Add listener on our div parent element. The first thing we want to do is we want to define that div in a variable. So let's define it as 3A. And of course, we start with our document object. We get element by ID. The ID here is 3A. Pretty straightforward, right? The next thing I want to do is I want to add an event listener. So let's access 3A, add event listener. We are going to be listening for the click event. And then let's just call our own custom handler quit it. And we want to listen to this and execute this handler when? I want to do it during the capturing phase. So that's why we have to specify true as the third argument. And finally, we just have to define our handler function. Very simple, very intuitive. So I want to console log something to the screen. Let's just say you have been stopped in your tracks. And the last thing I want to do is I want to grab our event itself. And how do we do that? Well, we can define it in any variable we want. Remember, I said that most developers, it's standard practice to just define it as E. So now we want to grab our actual event and we want to call this stopPropagation method on it. Whew, I hope that's making sense. So let's think about what will happen. When we go and click that button 1, we know the event starts at the root, doesn't it? And it travels down each element. It's going to eventually hit this 3A element, which also has the same click event listener method on it. It's then going to execute that function. In this case, it's going to console log you've been stopped in your tracks, but then it's going to stop the propagation. It's going to stop this event from traveling any further. So I wouldn't expect this click handler function to even be called. So let's see if we write. Let's go to our browser. Let's actually open the console. And let's click on this button. Are you ready? You've been stopped in your tracks and nothing else happens. And to prove that to you, let's go here and let's comment out the stop propagation. Let's go back to our console. Let's clear it and let's click it again. This will be the default behavior. It's going to show you've been stopped in your tracks, but then it's going to continue down. It's going to hit that button. Its event handler is going to be called, and then it's going to be called again during the bubbling phase. Whew, so there you have it. I hope it's starting to sink in. I hope it's starting to become more intuitive. And as you can see, it's not that difficult once we understand the basics, is it? Before we move on to the next lecture, I just want to mention something quickly, and that is this stop propagation method will stop the move of the event traveling upwards, right? But on the existing current element, all other handlers will run. In other words, if an element has multiple event handlers on a single event, then even if one of them stops the bubbling, all the other event handlers will still execute. And that may be absolutely fine, it may be what you want, but if you actually want to stop the bubbling process and prevent handlers on the current element from running, there's another closely related method called stop immediate propagation. I just wanted to kind of let you know that that exists. And this just means that after that method's fired, no other handlers will execute, even on the existing element. Great, hope you're having fun, and I'll see you in the next lecture.